In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Hey, y'all, and welcome back to the Daily Memphian's Tigers podcast. We are here, or I'm here rather, with John Martin, as always. The Tigers season obviously came to a screeching halt with a first-round NCAA tournament loss to Colorado State last Friday in Seattle. I was there for that. We can talk about that in a little bit. And now it is portal season, so the frenzy begins. You know, as always around here with moving parts and folks to call and folks to text and threads to pull. John, how are you doing?
Well, great, man. Yeah. Sad ending for sure. Bitter end to what was overall a sweet season, I would say, for Memphis.
No doubt. And we'll get into that. But first, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever that may be. And check out all of our work at dailymemphian.com. John's got you covered with Tigers columns, college sports columns, and obviously I've got you on the Tigers basketball beat. John, you called it a sweet season. Obviously, that's, I guess, among the fan base, been up for debate. And I know emotions were raw, obviously, with how things ended last Friday. It's been 6 days now. You've had time. I've had time. Everybody's had time to take a step back and look at the entire body of work and look at where this thing started back in last August, and where it is now. It's hard to call it anything but a giant success. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. 67 teams are going to have this, 67 teams are going to have this, discussion with themselves. They're going to be asking the same questions. They're going to have to sort of square, a great regular season with a premature ending. I mean, if Memphis could have won a game, that would have been ideal, right? If they hold on in that second half. But I mean, we talked about it. Not having Tyrese Hunter, not having Dante Harris, that game was big. It was a big problem. It wasn't the plan. So, I think overall you have to take the good with the bad, and Memphis did a lot of things that they needed to do, which is win the AAC regular season, win the the AAC tournament, which I know was important to some folks, but they got a 5 seed. They showed, hey, this is possible in the American. If you dominate the way you're supposed to. So I think there was still, quite a bit to take out of this year. And I think it was the kind of year that Memphis fans needed, that the administration needed from Penny to show, hey, this could still be successful here.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously they didn't end the big drought, which is to get to a Sweet 16 for the first time since 2009, but several other droughts were ended, right? They had their first consensus All-American since CDR, who did it back in '08. They won their first conference regular season title since 2012, 2013, when they were part of a whole different league in the Conference USA with Josh Pastner. So there were dry spells that were quelled, right? That were ended, that were put to a halt. And this thing, as you mentioned, is very much back on track. I think if I'm a fan, probably what stings more is just looking at what happened in the first half, right? And being right there, or not being right there, but having the game in your hands, being up by 6 at halftime, 5 at halftime, whatever it was, and just kind of letting it get away from you. Who is to blame for that? I've seen a lot of stuff rather on social media. Oh, Penny got out coached by Niko Medved. And then I've seen, other people say, well, the players just ran out of gas. He was playing about 6 guys. Is the way Memphis lost just a matter of circumstance, or is it something that to you points to a larger issue about Penny's coaching style, philosophy, strategy, et cetera? How do you kind of square that?
I don't think saying Penny got out coached is some great indictment on him as a head coach. I think he just got out adjusted in that second half by Niko Medved. Penny out coached Niko Medved in the first half. So it's not like this was just some belt to ass situation. I mean, it was just Niko made the adjustments at half. And look, it could be that Penny didn't have an adjustment to make. It could be that there was no counter. because you were down your top two ball handlers. Very possible. So I sympathize with that. But look, I'm not taking anything sweeping out of that loss. I mean, it was one loss. It's one game. Yeah, the stakes are high because it's the tournament. But I didn't come out of that feeling like, oh man, like this is really just never gonna. Memphis wasn't healthy. They weren't healthy. They didn't have Tyrese Hunter. Now, if Tyrese Hunter was in that game, that's different, but he wasn't. And I think that changed so much about Memphis. Like we saw them, how they looked against Temple. They look like crap. They look like crap in that home game against Temple. They were 15-point favorites.
And that was with Dante Harris,
And that was with Dante Harris. So now you remove Tyrese and Dante. You just weren't going to win that game, man. Barring something out of body, you just weren't going to win that game. And it's a tough break for Memphis, man. I don't think it has to mean anything big picture. It's just one bad 40-minute span that came at a tough time with the injuries to, your top two ball handlers. So I wouldn't really read too much into it. It's just the way that this tournament works.
No, for sure. And people can zoom out, and it's totally fair to do so and look at it like, okay, Penny's been here 7 seasons now. Of the 6 possible NCAA tournaments, he's been to 3 and only won one game, right, in those 3 appearances, which is all fair. But if we're just looking at it with this past season in a vacuum, I think it's a B season, right? And I think that's a fine grade. That's not an insult. Like, that's a good season, I think.
Yeah, sure. B plus, whatever grade you want to ascribe. Sure, I'm with it. I mean, I think it was, it was totally needed. This is a weak league. It's going to get even worse now with the loss of Ross Hodge to West Virginia.
Yep.
Memphis showed that, hey, we're back. We reestablished, or for the first time established, dominance in this league. They're going to continue to have 3 times more NIL than anybody else probably. And, I would expect Memphis to be able to do this year in and year out at this point.
And that's what I want to get to next. Obviously, we talk about this being a good season, but I think what's going to be telling, of course, is can Penny build upon this, right? If he has 3 more seasons like this, where let's say they're a 5 seed, 6 seed in that neighborhood, 2-3 more seasons, and they get bounced in the first round, well, then it's not enough all of a sudden, right? Then that's not good. But this is a stepping stone, is good. A lot of things had to break the Tigers' way, right? Like in order for all this to happen, they rebuilt their entire roster, rebuilt their coaching staff, and personalities gelled. The fit on the court mostly worked, and the team stayed glued together. Also, the non-conference they put together held up, unlike was the case 2 years ago, where all those teams kind of flopped. How difficult can this be, right, to replicate? You're looking at it now where Memphis, people talk so much about, they'll have continuity, they'll have roster continuity this season. Well, it doesn't really seem that way at this moment, right? Like they had, I think, a total of 7 guys they could have brought back. Baraka, Koji, Jared Harris, not the biggest losses, but losses nonetheless, already in the portal as of Tuesday. Now you're down to PJ Haggerty, who's obviously the big fish, the All-American that you really want to get back. You've got PJ Carter, Dante Harris, Buna Kibe. I keep thinking I'm mispronouncing his last name, and I probably am, so I apologize for that. And Demarion Dink Yates. And that's it. That's your list, right, of guys you can bring back. It's going to be another roster rebuild. And it's going to be another game of scheduling to the best of your ability and hoping that the teams do their part of the deal and hold up their own resumes in order for your non-conference schedule to look good, because it matters so much when you're playing in, kind of the dog crap AAC. Let's face it. How replicable is everything Memphis did this season in order to get that 5 seed and be in that position? Yeah,
I mean, I think going 10-3 in your non-conference is definitely going to be tougher. But even if you ended up 8-5, 9-4, I mean, it's still fine. Like I think Memphis can expect to win 15 to 16 games in this league every single year. I mean, again, North Texas is going to be there's going to be a drop off. UAB, you beat UAB 3 times this year, and they're losing Lindeborg. What are you worried about with UAB? Like who on earth comes even close to Memphis in this conference? Nobody. So I think, the 5 seed piece of it will be tough, but I think Memphis is in a really good spot, and I'm writing about that, this week, that there's a lot of reasons to be helpful. Like you should really be able to dominate this conference year in and year out because it's that bad. So I don't know if the 5 seed part of it is going to be as replicable, but tournament every single year, I mean, I think the consistency should be pretty easy to achieve.
No, for sure. That's a good point. I guess it matters like what you consider the bar, right? Or like what is the absolute minimum? Is it just getting in the tournament, or is it, going to be a thing where fans, if not next season, the season after, are really clamoring, for that Sweet 16 appearance in order to deem Penny Hardaway the man for the job long term? Would your optimism be just as high no matter what PJ Haggerty chooses? Because that's like kind of the main talking point, right? Like, can they retain PJ Haggerty, your first consensus All-American in freaking 16 years? And can they, or 17 years rather, and can they put the right pieces around him?
I mean, I don't know if they can. Obviously, it's just going to be a math question. How much does he get on the market? How much does Memphis have? How much does Memphis want to commit to him? I think continuity is great, in the doses that you can achieve it. You look around the Sweet 16, Purdue's got continuity. Alabama's got continuity with Mark Sears. Arkansas's got continuity, even though it's a new team. They brought over DJ Wagner. They brought over Adu Thero. Like, they've even gotten some continuity. So yes, continuity is important in doses. It's not really possible, team wide. You don't see that really. But in Florida, same way, they brought a lot of guys back from a season ago. I would love to obviously have PJ Haggerty back, but I'm not going to commit, 70% of my NIL budget to him to do that. I mean, you have to field a team. And I think there are guys out there with Penny's track record that he could get. And I mean, because PJ Haggerty, nobody was talking about him as a potential All-American before the season started, right? I mean, they knew that, hey, he did some good things at Tulsa. He showed some good things at Tulsa, but nobody had him as an All-American. So Penny's got the magic touch. Penny knows how to coach guards. And I trust that even if PJ Haggerty decided to go somewhere else, he would be able to find a guy that he could develop and maybe not have an All-American season, but certainly put in the conversation for Conference Player of the Year.
The names you've seen floated around thus far, the names you've seen reported, Memphis being the mix for, and we'll get to some of them in particular here shortly, but at this stage, when it's only 4 days into the portal even being open, obviously we know this work's done in the dark for weeks prior to the portal opening. But how excited does that make you for what the roster could look like with the names you're seeing connected to Memphis so far, 4 days in?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, you gotta see how it comes together over the course of a season. I think we look back at 2 years ago, we said, man, this team is great. Add Naquan Tomlin at the deadline, you're top 10 in the country. Would have said this team is absolutely rolling. Let's go. And they don't even make the tournament. And coming into this season, we would have said, yeah, this team doesn't feel that good. It feels okay. It feels like it could be, make the tournament maybe. And they got the highest seed that Memphis has gotten in 16 years.
Yep.
So you just don't know, man. I mean, I think it looks fine. I like the idea. Some of the players, man, I hate to give you that answer, but I don't know how anybody can know. I don't know how anybody can know, sort of like a sure thing, like Cooper Flagg or something, I mean, but how a guy like Chris Bell, who averaged 9 a game at Syracuse, like how he would come in and, I don't know. I think that's something that you'd have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think there's a pattern here so far, at least with Memphis identifying the type of player it's looking for, right? And it's long, versatile wings who can shoot for the most part. Some of them can't shoot that Memphis is targeting, but Chris Bell is one of them that can definitely put the ball in the basket from 3. I think he's a career, I want to say 40% 3-point shooter in his 3 seasons at Syracuse. And obviously he'll be on a visit, I've confirmed, this weekend. So that is a little bit of exciting news. The wing from Quinnipiac, right? Amari Monroe. Yeah. Memphis has been eyeing him for a good minute now. And he's supposed to be on a visit. I'm not sure as of recording this Thursday afternoon if that's scheduled yet or not, but he is supposed to be here. I'm told, likely, if all things go well, sometime by the end of this week, with the week winding down here. So you've got those 2 guys in the mix. You've got the kid from South Carolina. I'm blanking on his name right now. Zachary Davis, right?
Yeah.
Another 6'7" long rangy guard who can defend multiple positions. So it looks like they're trying to build around Haggerty. And then you've got the Dane Danger factor with, his waiver, hopefully, not going through, but at least being completed soon. I'm told he's found representation, which is a good sign, and that he is pursuing that option. But man, if you can get PJ and Dane back, that'd be as good of a tandem as any, right? That Memphis has had coming back under Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be a preseason top 25 team. You'd be obviously picked to win the AAC. That would definitely be the best. You got to go back to the peak of Josh when they brought back like Chris Crawford and Austin Nichols and Joe Jackson and everything. Like you have to go back to that team, which I think was ranked, in the preseason top 10, if not better. I mean, you'd have to go back that far. So yeah, it'll be huge. I don't know if it's going to be possible, but that's what you strive for. You strive for that level of continuity with those kinds of players. And you would obviously feel really, really freaking good about that if you can manage to convince them both to come back and afford them is the real one.
No doubt. And I put a tweet out earlier kind of asking for questions. And one of the questions we got, I'll throw it to you first, is about the Dane Danger situation, right? This user, I'll pull it up here on my phone. He basically was asking about the likelihood of that waiver going through based on, what his claim is, how long it could take, which, nobody knows, right? With NCAA, how long these things take. But I'll read you the question here. It is from @LittlePenny. So Little Penny is asking us, what is the likelihood of Dane getting a waiver? Also, how long should we expect the process to take? John, can you weigh in on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, you would know more than me on this one. I don't know. I don't know anybody involved in the decision. I don't know anybody involved. So I haven't checked on it at all. I have no idea what his case is. So you would know more on this one than I would.
For sure. Yeah, the way I understand it is obviously he redshirted his true freshman season at Baylor. But what folks who know about his situation are saying, some at least, was that he was not eligible to play, right? Regardless. So he redshirted, but he didn't redshirt while still being an eligible NCAA athlete. So even though it was that 2020-21 year where everybody got an extra season because it was COVID-19 inflicted, if you will, Dane doesn't kind of apply under that umbrella, given the fact that even if he hadn't redshirted, he wouldn't see the court because he was not eligible. Obviously, he then hurts his foot in that same season. So that's part of his claim as well. And then the following season, he plays 3 games before leaving for Illinois. But from my understanding, he left on his own accord. So that's kind of dicey too, right? Like, is the NCAA going to give him that year back, even though he chose to walk out? It's kind of like a Caleb Mills situation that we saw play out last offseason, where he went from Houston to Florida State, lost a season, but was not given it back ultimately by NCAA. The NCAA's folded, though, time and time again as of late, right? Like, all it's taken is, threatening to sue or taking this thing to court or whatever it may be for the NCAA to kind of back up and bend. So, in today's era, why not try it? Like, it'd be dumb for Dane not to try to maximize his value, which would be at the college level, I think, next season.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a very strong case, but it's hard. It's hard to predict.
But I'm not making it for him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that is the case, but the NCAA is pretty unpredictable. It's hard to know. So hopefully, they flip a coin and it lands, whatever side it needs to land for Dane.
No doubt. That's all the time we have for today. Got obviously various pieces of news to come this offseason. We'll be around for that.
Yep.
So make sure you're tuned in, subscribed, tapped in, all of that, and we will see y'all shortly.